Alrighty guys, this is the story of Jeffery MacDonald. Just know that this will probably take a number of videos. I'm not sure how long it's going to take, but just be aware that there's a lot of details in this case and I had to cut a lot of it back to be able to put it up for you guys on here. So with that being said, warning, viewer discretion is advised. Jeffery Robert MacDonald was born on October 12, 1943. He was an American former medical doctor and a United States Army captain who was convicted in August 1979 for the unaliving of his pregnant wife and his two daughters in February 1970 while serving as an Army Special Forces physician. On the afternoon of February 16, Jeffery took his daughters to a feed and ride Christmas pony that he had bought them. The trio had returned home at about 5:45 p.m. According to Jeffery, he then played horsey, allowing his daughters to ride upon his back as if he was a Shetland pony for a short while before he had put Kristen to bed at approximately 7 p.m. And his other daughter stayed up, Kimberly, playing a game on the coffee table. Colette, his wife, returned home at about 9:40 p.m. The two later sat on the couch watching television together before Colette decided to go to bed. Jeffery then himself fell asleep in the living room in the early hours that following day. At 3:42 a.m. on February 17, 1970, dispatchers at Fort Bragg received an emergency phone call from Jeffery, who had faintly spoke into the receiver. "Help! 44-4 Castle Drive, stabbing. 44 Castle Drive, stabbing. Hurry!" The operator then heard the sound on the receiver clatter against the wall on the floor. Within 10 minutes, responding military police had arrived at the address, initially believing that they were responding to a domestic disturbance. They found the front door closed and locked, and the house inside was dark. No one answered the door. They circled to the back of the house, where the police sergeant discovered the back screen door closed and unlocked, and the back door wide open. Upon entering, the sergeant walked into the master bedroom before running to the front of the house, shouting, "Tell him to go get Womack ASAP." Colette MacDonald was discovered sprawled on the floor in the master bedroom. She laid on her back with one eye open and one breast exposed. She had been repeatedly clubbed about her body with both forearms, later found to be broken. The pathologist would note that these wounds had been inflicted as Colette had raised both arms to protect her face. In addition, she had been stabbed 21 times in the chest with an ice pick and 16 times around the neck and chest with a knife, with her trachea severed in 2 places. A bloodied and torn pajama top was draped upon her chest and a paring knife laid beside her body. Besides her, Jeffery MacDonald was found lying face down, alive but wounded, with his head on Colette's chest and one arm around her neck. As military personnel approached, he whispered, "Check on my kids. I heard kids crying." 5-year-old Kimberly was found unalived in her bed and had been repeatedly bludgeoned about her head and body, stabbed in the neck with a knife between 8 to 10 times. She laid on her left side. Kimberly's skull had been fractured from at least 2 blows to the right side of her head, and one to her face caused her cheekbone to protrude through her skin. The wounds inflicted to Kimberly's head were sufficiently severe to the nature to have caused bruising in her brain, coma, and death too soon after infliction. Across the hallway, 2-year-old Kristen was found in her own bed, also lying on her left side with a baby bottle close to her mouth. She had been stabbed 33 times across the chest, neck, hands, and back with a knife, and 15 times with an ice pick. 2 knife wounds had penetrated her heart, and the ice pick wounds were noted to be shallow. The injuries to her hands were likely defensive wounds, and on the headboard of Jeffery's marital bed, the word pig was written on 8-inch capital letters. The blood used to write the words was later determined to belong to Colette. Having received impromptu resuscitation, Jeffery sat upright, then exclaimed, "Jesus Christ, look at my wife. I'm gonna kill those goddamn acid heads." He was immediately taken to the nearby Womack Hospital, shouting, "Let me see my kids," as he was carried out of his home in a stretcher. He was taken to Womack Army Medical Center. The staff later found that he had suffered from cuts, bruises, and fingernail scratches to his face and chest, although none of these wounds were life-threatening or required stitches. Jeffery was also found to have a mild concussion. He also received a single stab wound between 2 ribs on his right torso. This wound has caused his lung to partially collapse. Jeffery was released from the hospital after 9 days. Later, Jeffery would be questioned by the Criminal Investigation Division CID. Later, by his account of that night, he said that he heard Colette shouting, Jeff, help, why are you doing this to me?" she said to the intruders as he rose from the couch to go to her aid. Then he was attacked by 3 male intruders, 1 black and 2 white. The shorter of the 2 white men had worn a lightweight, possible surgical gloves. A 4th intruder was described as a white female with long blonde hair, possibly a wig, and wearing high-heeled, knee-high boots and white floppy hat partially covering her face. The individual stood nearby holding a lighted candle, chanting, "Acid is groovy, kill the pigs." Jeffrey claimed that the three males then attacked him with a club and ice pick, with the female intruder shouting, "Hit him again." Eventually, he was overcome by his assailants and knocked unconscious in the living room. Jeffrey later regained consciousness. The intruder had left the house by then. He had stumbled from room to room, attempting mouth-to-mouth resuscitation upon each of his daughters, with no avail before discovering his wife. He had pulled a small paring knife from Colette's chest, which he then tossed onto the floor. Then he finally phoned for help. Within minutes of the discovery at Castle Drive, military police were instructed to check the occupants of all vehicles in around Fort Bragg, seeking 2 white men, 1 black man, and a white woman with blonde hair and a floppy hat in an effort to apprehend the 4 intruders that Jeffrey allegedly had attacked him at his family's house. Despite their efforts, military police failed to locate the 4 intruders, and the initiative was abandoned at 6 a.m. Shortly after daylight on February 17th, investigators recovered the murder weapon just outside the back door. These instruments were an old hickory kitchen knife, an ice pick, and a 31 long piece of lumber with 2 blue threads attached with blood. All 3 were quickly determined to have come from the Jeffrey house, and all had been wiped clean of fingerprints. Jeffrey later claimed that he'd never seen these items before. Army CID quickly came to disbelieve Jeffrey's accounts, as they found very little evidence to support his version of events. Jeffrey's neighbors revealed that they heard no sounds of struggle or disturbance within the household in the early hours, but had heard Colette shouting in a loud and angry voice. In addition to the lack of damage inside the house, no fibers from Jeffrey's torn pajamas were found in the living room, where he claimed the garment had been torn in his struggle with the intruders. By mid-March, the CID obtained the results of forensic testing of blood, hair, and fiber samples within 544 Castle Drive that contradicted Jeffrey's accounts of his movements and further convinced investigators of his guilt. Kimberly's blood was found on his pajama top, even though MacDonald had claimed he was not wearing this garment while in her room attempting resuscitation. MacDonald's own blood was located in significant quantities only in 2 locations: in front of the kitchen cabinet containing rubber gloves, and upon the right side of the hallway bathroom sink. When investigators asked Jeffrey to submit to a polygraph to verify his accounts, he readily agreed, although within 10 minutes of the conclusion of the interview, he called investigators to state that he had changed his mind and he would not submit to any polygraph testing. On the evening of April 6, Jeffrey was relieved of his duties and placed under restriction pending further investigation. The following day, he was assigned an Army lawyer. At the recommendations of his mother, on April 10th, he instead hired a civilian defense attorney, Bernard Segal, to defend him. Less than a month later, on May 1st, the Army formally charged Jeffrey with 3 counts of unaliving. During the Army hearing, the CID investigators then theorized that Jeffrey attempted to cover up the unalivings using the articles on the Manson family unaliving that he had recently read in March 1970, issued as Esquire investigators had found in the living room. Putting on surgical gloves from medical supply in the kitchen closet, then he went to the master, where he used Colette's blood to write the word pig on the headboard. Jeffrey then laid his torn pajama over her dead body and repeatedly stabbed her on the chest with an ice pick, then discarded the weapons close to the back door of the property after wiping them clean of fingerprints. Finally, Jeffrey used a scalpel blade from the supply closet, entered the adjacent bedroom, and then stabbed himself once in the chest while standing beside the sink before disposing the surgical gloves. He then would use the family telephone to summon an ambulance before lying down beside Colette's body as he waited for the military police to arrive. On October 13, 1970, Colonel Rock issued a report recommending that the charges be dismissed against Jeffrey as insufficient evidence existing to prove his guilt, adding his belief to no truth existed in the charges, and that the nature of the unalivings led to him to believe that the perpetrator were either insane or under the influence of drugs. Later the same month, all charges were formally dismissed, although new CID investigation tasked with findings the unalivings were assembled in February 1971, with Jeffrey still being considered as a suspect. On August 12, 1974, a grand jury convened before a U.S. District Judge Franklin Dupree in Raleigh, North Carolina, to hear the legal proceedings, and 75 witnesses were called to testify. On August 29, 1979, shortly after 4 p.m., the jury have been deliberating for 6.5 hours. They announced that they have reached their verdict. Jeffrey was convicted of 1 count of first-degree unaliving and the death of Kristen, and 2 counts of second-degree unaliving and the death of Colette and Kimberly. On July 29, 1980, a panel of the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals reversed Jeffrey's conviction, ruling via 2-1 margin that a 9-year delay is bringing him to trial violated his Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial. He was released on August 22nd, having posted a $100,000 bail, and subsequently returned to work as a director of emergency medicine at St. Mary Medical Center in Long Beach, California. He would later announce his engagement to his fiancée, Randy D., in March 1982. On March 31st, 1982, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that Jeffrey's right to a speedy trial had not been violated, stating that the time interval between the dismissal of the military charges and the indictment of the civilian charges should not be considered in determining whether the delay in bringing Jeffrey to trial violated his right to a speedy trial under the Sixth Amendment. He was rearrested and returned to federal prison, and his original sentence of 3 consecutive life sentences reinstated. The following year, Jeffrey dismissed Segal as his legal representative. Alrighty guys, I'm going to pause right here. So Jeffrey went ahead and appealed this decision. There was a lot of back and forth, as you can see, and ultimately he would be in prison for the rest of his life. One thing to note is that in June 1979, Jeffrey invited the author of Joe McGinnis to write a book about his case. The book is named Fatal Vision. But anyways, up to this day, he still proclaims his innocence on the case, and he is currently at Cumberland Federal Correction Institution, where he will probably remain for the rest of his life. Guys, forgive me if this video took longer than what you guys wanted, but I wanted to give you as much details about the case as possible and take out all the stuff that you guys didn't want. If you guys do want to know more about the case, like I said, there's a book, and you can probably watch videos about it too, and a lot of articles on this case as well. But remember, until my next one, I love you guys always. Make good decisions, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye guys.